Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator. He's been a head coach. He's older than Kyle. He's 10 years older than Kyle Shanahan, and he's been around. What are the expectations for Steve? What are your expectations for Steve?
I think the defense is going to see a drop off, even though I did advocate. Which remember last week I said that I was like, I think I like him better, but a little bit of bias. I've always feel like Steve Wilks gets the short end of a stick, and I want to finally see him in a situation where it presents a thriving opportunity, which I wouldn't. I'm not going to bet against. I think he will thrive, but I just don't see he's not going to sustain that same level that DeMeco Ryans did, because DeMeco Ryans is easily like phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking maybe more so we'll see him at the most be like a Robert Saleh type, which is not a bad deal at all at the most. I think we're going to see almost like something similar like the 2020 in terms of the coverage, because honestly, the secondary is pretty good. You got Travarius Ward and Diamador Lenore, and then if you do get Emmanuel Mosley back, even better. I think at that point, you just got to figure out who's opposite of Talanoa Hufanga. So I think we're going to see like a nice improvement in the secondary where all those big gainers are probably cut in half, if not lessened. I just wonder what he's going to do with like in terms of his creativity of how he masks the defense and whatnot. But ultimately, Steve Wilks, the expectation on him is like very high. He's under immense pressure, because what have we seen? What's been the main strength of the Niners since their first playoff run in 2019?
The defense.
The defense, right? There's no way. You're always thinking of 2019, 2020 blanket coverage, 2021. The only reason why they stayed alive to the end of the game of week 17 or 18 was because the defense gave them a chance in all those games. And even last year, now all of a sudden you have a guy, an outside source who is, you're hoping keeps everything similar and isn't too much of a drop off to the point where it allows the offense to get all those slow starts, a margin for errors available for those first 4 to 8 games. And that's pretty much been the case every year. The offense starts slow. We don't know what they are until like by mid-season, late season. And that's because of the defense in both playoffs and regular season. You get a drop-off that can cost you a few more games, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now this team has to turn more offensive identical, which kind of should be in the first place considering your head coach is on that side of the ball. But I think that's where the total immense pressure falls on him. And if they see a drop-off and it comes to the point where like they're not even a top 10 defense, I can already see the pitchforks coming for him and like getting yelled at for his job.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think there's too much talent on this defense.
Exactly. I'm not betting that for sure.
Because I don't think there was that much that DeMeco was doing. No offense to DeMeco, good coach. But schematically, I don't think there was that much he was doing. So what I'd like to see with Wilks, I'd like to see him improve on what DeMeco was doing. DeMeco's very good, but especially with the run defense and coverage. Those two, zone coverage. Let's say zone coverage and the run defense. But pass rush, like the Niners' pass rush is mediocre. And maybe that's personnel, but if you don't have – it is. But if you don't have, like, the great four-man pass rush that Saleh had a few years ago or that the Eagles have now, I'd like to see some schematic pressures that you can bring to the table. Saleh did that without Bosa for a season. I'd like to see Wilks generate some pressure of his own, because there'd be games where DeMeco wasn't getting pressure with 4, and he would just kind of accept it. And he'd have a couple blitzes with Talanoa, but I'd like to see some more creativity there. And also, I'd like to see him stop giving up the big explosive plays. Like, that was the one thing with DeMeco. Stop. The pass rush is too good. Why are you giving up these throws over the top? I'd like to see Steve Wilks change that. And then the last thing I'd like to see with Wilks is that as a leader, dude, you've been a head coach on multiple teams. You're older than Kyle. When he does his crazy stuff that he does, where he tries to, call a 7-step drop and block Hassan Reddick with freaking his backup tight end, can you be the one who steps up in the meeting that week and says, Kyle, no. If I were the coach on the other team, I'd be begging you to do this. I am the coordinator of common sense, and I say no, Kyle, because I don't think there's one person on this team that has the confidence to say no to Kyle. Steve, will you do it, please? Please. They need you to do it. They're dying for you. Kyle wants you to do it deep down inside. Even if he gets mad, he wants you to do it. He wants you to do it. Do it.
I'm sure the outside guy is going to say something. Can you imagine how many times Anthony Lynn actually said something to him? I mean, it's like
2 of them. Yeah, he's a head coach too, man. Put him in check,
Mike
Anthony.
McDaniel barely said anything. Oh, Mike McDaniel, I think probably said more. But it's like there's no way in hell you're Anthony Lynn and Steve Wilks, you're going to say anything of that. So I mean,
that's your boss. Yeah, that's your boss.
I don't think he's not going to listen to Jack. So at least on the defense, you're Wilks. I think the one thing is especially about him is you have to be open-minded and willing to listen and adjust, especially.
Yes.
Which I would assume is part of the reason why he's got that job and not Vic Fangio, where Fangio probably was like, I'm gonna run it this way, I want to do it this way. And maybe it would have even came at the cost of using a defensive position coach like Chris Kaserik, which was like, where is this coming from? Like, what? He's on the way out? Like, what? Is it because of Fangio? So I'm pretty sure, like, knowing him, it's like, Fangio wants to change all this stuff, and it's like, as great as the defensive coach he is, it's like it's too much moving pieces, which is like, all right, well, that's why I think I already ruled him out before, like days before, like last week. I thought he was pretty much done even before that report. Well, again, like Wilks, it's not gonna be too much. They kept everyone in place, so I think that's gonna be a Kaserik deal with like how he wants to deal with the stunts, and then I think it's gonna be a lot of like whisper in this Wilks ear of trying to help him. So since he has all these coaches already, has all that talent. So I think it would take a lot for him to fail. Like he would either have to be deliberately sabotaging or just completely out of his mind, which I'd be hard pressed to say he would be. I know his resume doesn't really look great, but I mean, if someone wants to bring up his past, it's like, come on, dude, you're gonna compare the Cleveland Browns in 2019, which he did have a top 10 pass defense, 200 yards. You're gonna compare the Panthers and all like that, the Missouri defense, whatever. It's not even comparable. Like it's not. It's really not.
Yeah, and one thing with Kyle to me that's interesting is his best year still was in Atlanta as a coordinator. And what's interesting about the setup they had in Atlanta was the head coach was not his dad or a family friend in Gary Kubiak. It was Dan Quinn, who is a defensive coach. And I feel like there probably was some checks and balances there, at least for a time, where Kyle could say, this is what I want to do this week. And Dan would be like, I like this, I like this, I like this. This is insane, Kyle. If you did this against me as a defensive coach, I would feast. I would want you to do this. He needs some, I'm guessing, until maybe the Super Bowl when Dan Quinn just went silent and Kyle Shanahan lose the thing. He needs someone to stand up and be like, Kyle, I'm the senior defensive coach here, and this is insane. This one thing. You can't do it. Someone needs to say that to him. I feel like Dan Quinn did in Atlanta, and no one does here, and that's to his detriment. So I don't know. Maybe he trusts Steve Wilks. Maybe he brought in Steve Wilks to challenge him. In which case, that is maturation. Because a good coach, a good leader wants to be challenged. That way, he feels like if he can hear every perspective from people he trusts, and if he makes a decision, he's thought about it from every perspective. That's what you want. Anyway,
if that was the case, wouldn't he have hired Fangio then?
Maybe.
Because Fangio's like more like stern.
Yes, Fangio would have that. Yeah, I
think the reason why he bought Wilks is other than just because like I don't want to change my defense, is because also like at least I know Wilks is just not gonna like do too much and like I don't want to be.
Wilks is happy to. Wilks is happy to be here.
That's not the right phrase, but like be outspoken like that or be.
He probably has less standing and gravitas than Fangio.
Not like a yes man, but versus Fangio, it's like Fangio's like old. He's more old school. He's would have been like, we're changing this, we're changing that, and it's like, whoa, this is my ship, Vic. And even though I don't run the defense, we're keeping it this way. And probably Vic wanted too much input. And eventually, if you have input in your defense, at the very least, you might want to have input on other things. There's a chance where Wilks might just be like, I'm worrying about this side of the ball. I'm trying to do the best here like that. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I think he's just going to be grateful and want to make the max most of what he's done because he's never been in a situation like that. And he knows if he does it good for a year, 2 or 3, a head coach job might be on the line again for him.
That's true. But all I'm saying is
I just don't trust Kyle.
He doesn't have to change the defense. But when Kyle is installing the game plan on whenever it is, Tuesday or Wednesday, and if Steve Wilks, who's very experienced and older than Kyle, hears something that doesn't sit right with him or sees something that looks insane, dude, speak up. Don't be afraid like it seems like everyone else is in this organization to challenge Kyle Shanahan's ego. Speak up. And if Kyle might like it, he might be like, you know what? I like this guy. He's the one guy who calls me on my. Thank you, Steve. You never know. I would. So
are they even reviewing the game plan like that with defensive coaches?
I don't know, man. At some point, someone needed to tell Kyle, hey, I think it's a bad idea for us to run this play action 7-step drop with Tyler Kroft blocking Hassan Reddick on the 6th play of the game. I think that's a bad call.
But we've known he's always needed that, even before the season, because he's had like several calls a year that are just like, what the hell is that, dude? And it's just, he's not going to hear it. He's not, dude. He's not. He's like they just don't. He's like a stubborn like uncle or a stubborn dad that you just can't get through. And it's like, dude, he doesn't want to listen to me. It's my way or the highway.